My name is Matilda Rand, and coming up on Exploring Santa Cruz is a program with Jimmy Kelly and Jane Meredith Daugherty that was first recorded in February 2019 and aired on KSQD in September of that year. It's dedicated to and in honor of Jane, who was killed in August of 2021. She was a letter carrier by trade and a musician putting a smile on everyone's face. Her tragic death has shocked many of us, and I hope that this program will help heal those of us who knew her and will give others a glimpse of the terrific person Jane was. Let's start with the program. Welcome to the program. How did the two of you become a letter carrier?
Well, I took a civil service test. It's a test that tests your memory, and it's a competitive test. It doesn't matter who you are, black, white, yellow, brown, rich or poor. Everybody takes the same test, and they get a score. And based upon where you score, they call you in for an interview and throw you a letter bag and say, go do it.
Go for it. How about you?
Yeah, basically the same, but I was initially a clerk in Santa Barbara in a huge sorting facility. And the night hours were getting to be really difficult for me. I transferred up here, and again, more night hours. So I asked if I could switch to the carrier craft, and I did that from then on for 30 years.
Great. And now I understand you are PTFs. What is PTF?
Well, it's at the time it was called part-time flexible. The emphasis on flexible. When we started in our 90 days, I think we worked 60, 70 hours a week.
Yeah, and
it was really grueling. But so... This was a picture that was taken of me by the Good Times when I was a part-timer. I was sitting in a mailbox and reading the book Mailman USA. It's a book about the president of the Lettercarriers Union, and a photographer came by, and next thing you know, I'm in the Good Times.
Now, I understand from you, by talking to you beforehand, that it was really a great atmosphere, a lot of camaraderie.
Yeah, we both worked at the downtown Santa Cruz office, that beautiful old building on Front Street, and there were a lot of great old-timers and a lot of bantering back and forth. And we had our union picnic every summer at Harvey West, and there were functions and events that we actually look forward to going to. You know, a lot of fun people.
Yeah, the people really make the post office. It's
Amen.
And we stuck together through hard times and supported each other really well. And there was a lot of wonderful good times and bad times.
So what about this weather that everybody's talking about?
The year that actually Jimmy and I started as carriers about the same time, and up until this last week, I think that was the wettest, rainiest season, 82, 83. And I just remember standing in the back dock, and these sheets of rain were coming down, and the supervisor saying, "You're going to have to go out there eventually." And I was kind of rethinking my thoughts about my career, but we got through it. It really helped build character, and it's just part of nature and part of life.
I had a great attitude about the weather. If it was raining at work and I thought, oh great, it's not raining on my day off, and if it was my day off and it was raining, I said, great, I'm not getting wet at work.
There you go.
You told me that this very nice, I thought it was a great quote about letter carriers massage the earth. What's that one?
Peter Zidlowski on Route 6 used to say, the letter carriers massage the earth with their feet. So that's what we do.
Now, you also had some easier neighborhoods and some not so easy neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Actually, one of the ironies is when you're new, you get tossed to a lot of different routes, and oftentimes not very nice ones. And it's kind of all seniority based. So as you put in more time, you maybe bid onto a better route. You become part of the neighborhood. And I just remember being on Lower Ocean Street and some of those little side streets in the dark and thinking, this isn't real comfortable for me. But somehow the angels were watching over, and they sent out reinforcements, and I'm here to talk about it. So, yeah, but it wasn't the most pleasant experience.
I remember walking through Beach Flats one of these rainy days, and I saw sewage floating down the street, and I'm walking across the sewage thinking, is this the kind of job I want to do? But then I also went on Beach Flats on, I guess it was Christmas Eve, and that particular day, I met the most generous people. It seemed like almost every stop, if somebody was there, they would give me cookies, wine, candy, or they were always giving. And by the time I got back to the carrier's rod who I was working on, he had another Christmas when he came back to work.
And you shared with him?
Oh, yeah.
Of course. Besides some rough neighborhoods, there must have been some rough times when it was hard to bring mail to people. What do you say
the
about
recession. 2008. Well, that's how I met you, actually, Matilda. I was
right.
on your route for about 14 years. And you do get to know people, and unfortunately, some of the mail is telling. And we would deliver these certified letters that were oftentimes foreclosure notices or pre-foreclosure notices. And it was really heartbreaking to see people have to give up their homes and maybe move on. But there were actually some people that they said, okay, it's a new beginning. We're just going to save up, and eventually we'll be able to buy again. So I really was inspired by some of these people, but it was kind of sad.
Wow.
There were some tough times there.
So you had tough times, but you also had fun times.
Yeah.
So I think you told me that you were, the post office got to hear that you were a musician.
Yep.
And then you got invited to play at the Coconut Grove?
Yeah, well, we used to have these big parties that when we had money. And I don't know if it came from the vending machines or welfare fund or whatever, but it was kind of exciting. I got invited to play for my peers, which was pretty exciting. And that year the party was at the Coconut Grove. So I picked the best musicians I knew. I was fairly new in town. And as far as I know, it was a success. I got a lot of positive feedback.
And we ate and drank really well.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So would you want to play something jazzy for us?
Sure.
Yeah?
Okay. Basically, I was a music major in college, and jazz was my first love, so...
Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Your daddy's rich and your mama's good looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. One of these mornings you're gonna rise up singing. Then you'll spread your wings and you'll take to the sky. But until that morning comes, there's nothing can harm you. With daddy and mama standing, hush, little baby, don't. Hush, little baby, don't you cry.
Thank you, Jane.
Oh, thank you.
You're in the community and you walk around. What's your impression?
It's good, honest work. It treats everybody equally. The people that work there are a diverse group as you'll find anywhere. When Jane came, she was one of the early women that started working at the post office. It was primarily dominated by veterans, and so a lot of male orientation, but she was one of the first ones. Now you'll find people of every race, color, creed, and the service we provide is the same. We provide universal service. For 34 cents, you can send a postcard from Santa Cruz to New York, and if they moved in a year, they'll forward it for free. It's probably one of the best deals, and everybody gets treated with the same service, whether you're a business or a poor apartment dweller.
Yep.
Even if you don't even have a home, we'll deliver your mail to the post office. People that are homeless can actually get their mail there,
Yeah,
too.
general delivery.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, so we did some research about one day in the life of the United States Post Office. And I actually was surprised about these statistics. Every day in the United States, 506.4 million mail pieces are processed and delivered. There are 7,131 letter carriers on foot. Of course, there's also in the trucks, but on foot. And 54,490 address changes every day.
Wow.
How do you deal with that?
It's interesting because we've counted one time in Santa Cruz. We've decided, after counting all the change of addresses, everybody moves every 3 years, the entire population. Now, we know some people have lived here longer, so there's a lot of people moving a lot. And we have to remember who those people are and make sure that that mail gets forwarded properly. And it's a tough
It is a
job.
memory thing for sure.
Yeah.
And that's hard, especially if you're new on a route. You might accidentally deliver something that should not have been, but
We call that our Meet Your Neighbor program.
yeah.
You know, and the other thing that struck me was that you are the post office, the United States Post Office. You're the most trusted of all government agencies.
Yep.
And you must feel that when people meet you in the street and greet you, or most of the time.
Yeah, and it's there's a lot of reasons for that. We're reliable. Whenever I remember in the earthquake, for example, even though the trucks couldn't get here from San Jose, probably I don't think people came to work whose houses were destroyed and still were at work that day. I went around talking to all the letter carriers, asking them to assess what happened at home. And then they told us to go out and deliver the mail because it gives the community a sense of normalcy.
Right.
And I think that's a vital part of our job. It's consistent, it's reliable, and it's universal.
Yep. I think
And-
we're the best deal, too, globally.
Yeah.
I'm
So
told.
even though you're retired, you still carry that.
Yeah, I think, well, for me, it was an investment of 32 years of my life. So I still have dreams. Sometimes they're nightmares, parcels, just being buried in parcels. But yeah, it was all about the people. It was always about the people for me and becoming part of a community.
Yeah, and you know the final interesting thing, you know, of these statistics was that actually 0 tax dollars are received these days,
Right.
to do your job.
Yeah, all the revenues from the post office to pay for the salaries, to pay for the equipment, for the buildings, the utilities, none of it comes at taxpayer expense. It's all done through the sale of stamps and revenue that we raise outside of the government. So we are not taxpayer subsidized.
Wow.
Correct.
So we just heard Jane play. How did you get started in music?
Well, I used to collect political music. I've been a political activist all my life, and I've often done politics. And I found that the cultural music was important to me, too. I grew up listening to Pete Seeger as a child, and when I got a political consciousness from my 4th grade reading teacher, he taught us about unions. And so when I was the 3rd person in my family to join a union, I was very proud, got active in my union, and felt that the songs of the trade union movement, the civil rights movement, they often went together. And I would go to picket lines and sing music about the workers' struggle and to try to bring us together and make us feel more solidarity.
And so there was what you call informational pickets.
Yeah, we had one at our former East Side Post Office on Morrissey Boulevard, and I recall that you came and sang and played for us. We had to work all day. And then it was after work, we went out in our civvies, we had our pickets, and it was a great location because a lot of cars were coming by and honking and waving, and it was exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we won. We've got good benefits. We've got a good contract, but it's only because of the solidarity of the people inside working together to make sure that everybody gets good service that we continue to probably be the best delivery service and communication network in the world.
You're listening to KSQD 90.7 FM. Today we were speaking with Jimmy Kelly and Jane Meredith Daugherty about their connections to the community as letter carriers and as musicians. Let's now return to Jimmy Kelly, retired Santa Cruz letter carrier, and he's talking about meeting John Hancock.
The Postal Record is our union magazine. I saw a picture of Pete Seeger, one of my icons, and Joe Glazer. They were people on the left and the right in the 50s doing songs about unions. And I said they were getting together in Silver Springs, Maryland for a great labor arts exchange. So I decided next year I would take my vacation and go to Silver Springs, took the red eye, got to Silver Springs, and when I went into my room, I had a roommate, but after doing the red eye, as soon as I saw my bed, I laid out and fell asleep. I came outside, and I saw this guy singing a song, this black man. He said, wow, it's a really great song. Who is this guy? And that's who John Hancock was. John Hancock was a guy who wrote this song, Roll the Union On. He wrote it in the 1930s is when he was organizing farm workers in Arkansas. They threatened them. They had the rope. They had the limb. All they needed was him. And he escaped and went to New York. He was recorded by Charles Seeger in the 1930s for the Smithsonian. And his song, I've sung on picket lines many, many times. And I'll give you a couple of verses for you now. It's a zipper song. You change a word and you get a new verse. So it's called Roll the Union On, John Hancock's. You're gonna roll, we're gonna roll, we're gonna roll the union on. We're gonna roll, we're gonna roll, we're gonna roll the union on. And if the boss is in the way, we're gonna roll right over them. We're gonna roll right over them, gonna roll right over them. And if the boss is in the way, we're gonna roll right over them. Gonna roll the union on. We're gonna roll, gonna roll, gonna roll, gonna roll, gonna roll the union on. We're gonna roll, gonna roll, gonna roll, gonna roll, gonna roll the union on. And the nice thing about a zipper song, you can change one word and you have a verse that's contemporary. And if Trump is in the way, we're gonna roll right over him, gonna roll right over him, roll right over him. And if Trump is in the way, we're gonna roll right over him, gonna roll the union on. Well, I met John, and I was very impressed. And to have him as a roommate was one of the most delightful things that ever happened to me. And he was living history. He lived in California, so I decided that we needed to share this guy's legacy because his song was attributed to a white guy. And then it wasn't until the 1990s that he actually started getting royalties for a song. Pete Seeger found out that he was still alive and got the checks distributed to John. So I formed what was called a Great Labor Arts Exchange here in Santa Cruz, the Western Workers Labor Heritage Festival, and to honor John Hancock, and it was right here at the Civic Auditorium. As a result, we bring together civil rights people, union people, to bring the history, the culture, the music, and legacies together to honor Dr. Martin Luther King, because there's a close relationship between civil rights and union rights that came out of the 1930s. And songs like Roll the Union On, Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around, We Shall Overcome, for example, was a song that was sung by tobacco workers. And that was written for the civil rights movement at a labor center in Tennessee, where Pete Seeger and Guy Carawan got together. Guy Carawan sang it for Martin Luther King, and that became an anthem of the civil rights movement. So each year on Martin Luther King holiday, we honor Dr. King by bringing these two cultural events together. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you and me. Says I, but Joe, you're 100 years dead. I never died, said he. Joe Hill was a labor organizer, singer, songwriter, and troubadour who inspired people like Woody Guthrie and myself. And he was executed by a firing squad because of his union activities in Utah. So each year, the Labor Heritage Foundation, where I met John Hancock, gives an award out to somebody who does something about labor culture. I was given this award, the Joe Hill Award. And incidentally, that song that I sang you, the guy that wrote it was a guy, Earl Robinson. And he was the first guest of the Western Workers Labor Heritage Festival, came to Santa Cruz and sang that for us and did a workshop. And so it's just been a tribute to the legacy of labor and civil rights music.
You're listening to KSQD 90.7 FM. Today we are speaking with Jimmy Kelly and Jane Meredith Daugherty about their connections to the community as letter carriers and as musicians. The other thing I know that your union, the Letter Carrier Union, and other unions do every year is the food drive. Can you
Yep.
say something about that?
It's a very vital part of what we do. We have a food insecurity problem in this country, and particularly in this county. So I believe it was 80 million tons were collected last year. So we, on our appointed rounds, it's usually the Saturday before Mother's Day, but you'll get a postcard in the mail, I promise. And while we're on our appointed rounds, we will pick up the food. And I must say, on your route, when I was your carrier over, I think it was 14 years over in that neighborhood in Live Oak, it was the seniors and some of the lower income people that were always the most generous. It was to the point where I would have to call in to get someone to come out and offload all the food because I couldn't even get to the mail. That's how generous people were out there.
It's very important to recognize that in the month of May, we need the food. The people that,
Yep.
at Christmas time, people are very generous. It comes naturally. So when you put your goods out at the mailbox in May, people are still unemployed in June, July, and August, and they need food all year round. That day, we collect more food than a lot of places see all year. And it's
I think it's also tied to the fact that in the summers, a lot of the school children, they don't get the subsidized breakfast or lunches.
Yeah.
So it's a way for their families to go to the Second Harvest or the various outlets here in the county where they can pick up food. So I highly encourage you to be generous. It's a really worthy thing to do.
It's
and
easy.
it's every year.
Every
in
year.
May,
Yep.
before Mother's Day.
Usually. But you will get a postcard in the mail.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you say usually?
Well, the beauty of it is the letter carrier works hard all year round. That particular day, they're working quite doubly hard. They're bringing groceries
Right.
from all these addresses, and yet we feel good about it because we're pretty healthy people anyway, and we're treated well, and it's our way of giving back to community, and it's very special. So please participate.
Very important.
And the food that you collect, where does it go to?
We go to Second Harvest food banks
Yep.
and places like that, pantries up in the valley. They
Yep.
probably get food, and it's all given away for free.
Yep. Yeah, there's several distribution sites. I'm not sure exactly which ones, but I know primarily it goes to Watsonville Second Harvest, and then they parcel it out.
And so we started this conversation talking about how you got started, your early days, the camaraderie.
Yeah.
Bringing. I think at some point you told me in our pre-conversation that you were carrying a lot of catalogs.
Oh, yeah. Well, our careers have spanned such a long time that it was pre-internet. So people would order things, lots of first-class letters, lots of those big, thick catalogs, and it was on my shoulders. I had a pretty long walking route for about
Advos.
6.5 years. Yeah, and those every week, the shopping news, which we call ADVO.
Tax forms.
Yeah, but it was, and people wonder why I walk sideways. I have a limp. But yeah, and it's changed so much now with the online shopping. So Amazon is king now, and it's mainly about the parcels. We've seen some real dramatic changes over the years.
You do?
Oh,
What kind of changes
definitely.
have you seen?
What kind of changes have I seen? Well, I still send postcards every day. I find that I'm still 20th century in that regard. I like when I send people postcards, they seem to find for 34 cents they get happy, and it
Yeah.
makes people smile. So it's still the best deal in the world.
It is.
And if you move, they'll forward it for another year, and then 6 months after that, they'll send whoever sent the return address a notice with your new address. So it's quite a deal, and there's nothing like it.
Yep.
What other changes? How about when you left when?
Oh, I just retired 6 months ago. Woohoo!
And I think we have a picture of you on your last day.
There is. It's kind of somber. Immediately the day after, I was playing a gig with my band. So it was a real beautiful transition for me. I tried to keep the music going throughout my career, and it wasn't always easy. I'd be at the Crow's Nest on a Friday night, and then I'd have to drag myself into work Saturday morning because, as you know, we deliver on Saturday. And now Sunday, that's another big change.
Yes.
So it was a challenge, and having a family as well. But
Right.
I was driven to do it, and luckily I'm enjoying it now.
Well, it looks like we kind of came full circle here with how you started, how
Yeah.
your last day. I know there's plenty of more things to talk about, but I know you both have another song called The Carrier Blues.
All right.
And
Let's
so
do it.
why don't we get ready for that one?
This is a song written by Melvina Reynolds. She's a singer-songwriter, wrote the song Little Boxes, you might be familiar with. But in 1970, the letter carriers were very poorly paid. In fact, they were on food stamps. And so it caused the great postal strike in 1970. And so when she talks about the things that they blamed the letter carriers, they said, we can't give the letter carriers a raise because, frankly, if you do that, it'll cause inflation. Well, that didn't help the letter carrier pay his rent or pay his mortgage, and so they were eligible for food stamps. So she wrote this song. I paraphrased Mailman Blues to Carrier Blues. Here comes the carriers, love to see them on their way. Here comes the carriers, love to see them on their way. What kind of goodies do they bring in their bag today? Bag on the shoulder, full of Lord knows what. Bag on the shoulder, full of Lord knows what. One paycheck isn't heavy, but the junk weighs an awful lot. Bag on the shoulder, what's in there, heaven knows. Bag on the shoulder, what's in there, heaven knows. A letter from the tax man, a bill for my worn-out clothes. Bag on the shoulder, it weighs to carry it down. Bag on the shoulder, weighs to carry it down. Story in the paper, telling how the world goes round. Good morning, carrier, how come they blame the mess on you? Good morning, carrier, how come they blame the mess on you? They cut off all the money, now I have to do the work of two. Talking in the journal, talking in the Sentinel too. Talking in the journal, talking in the Daily News. The talk gets mighty heavy, and that's why I got the carrier blues.
You've been listening to a repeat program with Jimmy Kelly and Jane Meredith Daugherty. Jane will be on many people's mind for a long time after her tragic killing in August of 2021. I feel blessed to have known her. We will end the program with an original piece written by Jane.